Welcome back. You're now watching the political segment on The Weekend Show. This segment is supported by our partners, Worthy. Last week we started a conversation around sexual and reproductive health rights. Why is this important? Now we've seen the stories and the statistics about maternal mortality rates. We've seen the statistics about access to health care. And when we talk about women empowerment, we also push the conversation to speak more about women economic empowerment. But in able to have this economic empowerment and access to sexual reproductive health rights, there still exists some gaps. Now, in most cases, we expect the government to solve our problems, but we have certain individuals who have taken it upon themselves to advocate for several rights of the people, which ensures that we have protections, we have autonomy for people's individual health and reproductive rights, including access to contraception, family planning, amongst others. Joining us today, we have actor, physiotherapist, public health expert, and an advocate, Jemima Osunde. Good morning, Jemima, and welcome to the Weekend Show.
Good morning. Hi, Andy. Hi, everyone. Good morning.
I just want to say I watched the Lagos Love Story last weekend, and you were hilarious.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching.
You're welcome. Also joining us is the biggest Arsenal fan I know, Kelechi AFC. And I have to start with Arsenal, even though this is not a sports segment, because you won two matches back to back with all the doubters. Now, I'm a Chelsea fan, and so I have some haters in the studio, but I've always supported Arsenal just because let's all eat together. Kelechi is also an environmental engineer. He has a PhD, he's a sports enthusiast, he's a marketing expert and advocate. Welcome back on the Weekend Show, and congratulations, Kelechi.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for the congratulations. Very needed, very
You wouldn't
important.
forgive me if I don't add that, would you?
The
Good. We also have our partners, Agosa Oyemwese, from the Executive Director at TOS Foundation. Welcome on the Weekend Show, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
And
Thank
last but not
you.
the least, we have Adenike Odutola, who is the country director of Sky Girls Nigeria. All of you, welcome. And Adenike, welcome on the Weekend Show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great, so let's get into it. And I'll start with Jemima. A while back, we had a conversation on another platform, and you were wrapping up your master's, I think, in public health. And I
Public
know you're
health.
a physiotherapist. And I like this part of you because not a lot of people know about this. But what got you into public health, and why have you decided to lend your voice to sexual and reproductive health rights?
Thank you so much, Andy. What sparked my interest in public health? The short answer is Nigeria. Um, from being a person in Nigeria requiring, healthcare facilities and healthcare in general, I've been able to see that the things that seem easy or easily accessible to me is not they're not widespread. A lot of things I find or I assumed would be basic are not exactly basic to the common man in Nigeria. From my work as an intern in Luth, I schooled in Luth as an undergraduate for physiotherapy, and I did my 1 year of internship residency there as well. One of the things that really struck me is how things I personally assume to be basic healthcare are not so basic to the average Nigerian. I had patients struggle to pay for malaria medication that you and I would assume is easy to access, right, or easy to buy. We have the higher purchasing power, and I think that was just an eye opener that there's a lot of work to be done in our public health space. Nigerians are nowhere near getting optimum health care, and most importantly, it's not that easily accessible because it's very easy to restrict what you know to your immediate environment. And if you go by just Lagos, you're neglecting 35 other states and the FCT. I just realized that there's a lot of work to be done in the public health space, and I'm happy to always be where I'm needed. Sexual reproductive health rights is a very, very personal thing to me because, first of all, I'm a woman. I'm a young woman living in Nigeria. But, sexual health and reproductive health rights are not just for women, it applies to both genders. And every day I'm interacting with stories, I guess also because I work in women's health. Primarily, I'm seeing different things I think are avoidable by proper education, by giving people access to not just education, but equipping them with key points and knowledge that they can use in preventing a lot of things that I see happening today. And I just think the more we're able to put this word out, the more we're able to educate people. Education is extremely important. And I feel like educating people, allowing them even just be aware, is a huge part of, eradicating a lot of the things we're dealing with now that are easily avoidable.
I totally agree with you, and this reminds me of a couple of stories, and so trigger warning to people who may be affected by such conversations. But I recall in 2023, when they had the change of the naira, the currency, whatever, the notes, and there were
Yeah.
cases in places like Kaduna and Lagos where I think 2 women died because they had medical emergencies, went to the hospital, but they had to pay cash and they had no access to cash, to physical cash. And about 3 different people passed on. Most recently, there was a case of a pregnant woman in Nigeria who was pregnant, lost, and I think lost the baby and then died. And I found out it was a big conversation on social media, but a lot of it was placing blames. Why are you pregnant when you can't pay for the delivery? Why is the husband married when he can't afford this? Whose role is it to ensure, Jemima, whose role is it to ensure that sexual and reproductive health rights for the masses and the people is actually a fundamental right?
It's the role of everyone. It's the role of the community. It's the role of, I feel it should definitely start from a more secondary level. Imagine that we have more policies, more um, instructions set in place for this to happen in our schools, in our communities. It should be the right of every child to have access to sexual reproductive health. It should be the responsibility of parents. It should be the responsibility of grandparents. It should be the responsibility of older siblings. It should be everyone's responsibility. As long as there's a child in your vicinity, it's your responsibility to make sure that child knows about their sexual health, know about their body autonomy, know about their rights, know about their decisions, know about their ability to make these decisions and the ability to say no to certain things. People sometimes, I guess, because of whatever conditioning that we're in, think that sexual health education is just teaching about sex, but that's not where it begins and where it ends. It's a wider scope than that. Educating women, for example, on the rights and autonomy of their bodies, teaching them about, their monthly schedules with their ovulation, know when they're ovulating, know what their periods indicate, will help us in controlling, how many children, for example, a woman has. I don't even know that women all over the country understand their timetable, for lack of a better word to use, on their reproductive health every month. Just in teaching that, for example, you're equipping a woman with enough knowledge to know how to properly plan a pregnancy, exposing a woman and a husband to contraceptive options. Family planning is an important and integral part of society that I think we should all pay attention to. I attended the family planning conference in Abuja December last year with Kelechi. And one of the things that struck me that was said at the conference is if we don't take family planning seriously in Nigeria, by 2045, we'll be eating each other for dinner. And he's absolutely right. We are producing every day. Our population is growing every day. I don't even know that we exactly have the statistics to show exactly where we're at. But if we continue like this and neglect sexual health, especially in family planning and reproductive health and contraceptives, I think we're going to have a serious issue with our population in the next 20 to 30 years. So it's a whole lot of variables that come under this one umbrella. It's not just about teaching your young children about sex, which is what a lot of people tend to limit it to. And I guess that is what brings some sort of resistance to it. We're not saying that your teenagers or your young children should be having sex. We're saying that there's a wide variety of things that they should know to properly equip themselves to even prevent some of the things that you don't want happening to your children.
You know what, Jemima, I think you should come sit in the studio and just host this show because you've literally said it. You've literally said it all. You've answered Kelechi's
No,
questions. You've answered my
well,
questions,
she hasn't said the family planning part that I wanted to
which is
say
what
at
I
that.
wanted to speak to you about. So I mean, we can
You
just go
can
and
still
celebrate
say it though.
Easter. Kelechi, last year we had a conversation about the Nigerian women in the World Cup, in the Olympics as well, about empowering women economically. And you've just lent your voice to several causes, especially promoting women's rights generally. How did you find yourself here, and why is this important? Just so other gentlemen with platforms and voices of influence like you can understand that you don't need to put yourself in a box when it comes to advocacy and supporting the right causes. How did you find yourself here?
Thank you very much. I mean, I've been a women advocate from, I can say, from my house, from my childhood. Sometimes you watch the way you grow up. Sometimes, so what the things that are important. And I bless my parents for raising me the way they did. Like I tell people, my dad was never jealous of my mom. She had her own stuff doing. He had his own stuff doing. I've always been brought up that way. But coming into this space effectively, I want to thank Worthy and Osasi Bunedia for bringing me in. Yeah, I've always supported women's rights, like you said. In fact, actually, in the next 3 hours, Arsenal women will be playing in the Champions League semi-final, and I have to be there. You have to balance it for me. Oh. Yendeba, Yendeba. You understand? You watch the men, you watch the women, and
Yes.
that has always been like that for me. And when people see me go to women games and I'm shouting, chanting for someone, a player, my best player, Beth Mead, people are like, "Well, women's football." I'm like, "But it's the same. What is the difference?" If you I don't it doesn't take out anything. The same songs that we are singing, it's the same football that they are playing, they'll score in the net. So why is a woman referee, for instance? I mean, the game like 2 nights ago, a woman referee was the fourth official. Why is there a woman referee? But there's a male refereeing the women's game. So you have to balance it out. And when you see things that are going on in communities, how women are disadvantaged, what they go through, maybe when they lose their spouses and stuff like that, as a human being, when you see someone's a gender's fundamental rights being trampled upon, no, you should react. You should step out and say, no, this is wrong, and call it out. So I'm happy to be in this space, contributing my little quota. Anytime I'm called upon to do some activations and stuff, I am always readily available because SRHR is something we should talk about. It's something that like Jemima said, the policymakers should look into critically. Women's economic empowerment, the we policy as well, is something that should be adopted by every state. So that we can, like once women are winning, everybody's winning, the community is winning. So it's a no-brainer.
I agree with you, Tose. And Jemima spoke about education and a bit about family planning. We realize that not just in Nigeria, but globally, we've relegated the conversation about family planning to women. And when we talk about sexual and reproductive health, right, we talk about access to contraceptives, family planning, and the likes. But men are active participants
Of
in
course.
this conversation, in this scenario, and in the activities that leads to the conversations about sexual and reproductive health rights. What role do men have to play in this, especially when it comes to family planning? Because we talk a lot about how in 2030, in 2050, Nigeria will become one of the largest populations in the world. Why are we delegating the information around safeguarding the lives of the women who have to carry the pregnancy to term and go through a whole lot of risks during, before, and after? What role do men have to play in the family planning conversation?
They have to take into consideration, like what Jeremiah said earlier about us eating ourselves in 2045. They have to educate themselves. They have to be aware of the numbers. Some of these norms and some of these norms are both community led and religious led, and it's just about sensitization and telling them that the continuous reminder that things can get worse if we continue multiplying at this rate. Countries like China have, curtailed their own multiplications. Countries like Japan, I think, in fact, now they're even looking to increase a little bit because they understood that the more the population doesn't equate to the more the riches. You understand? So it's about us educating the men. It's about us also reminding them that it's not every time that you reproduce. Just that constant reminder for me and advocacy. I think it will go a long way.
I thank you so much. Let's bring in Adenike and Egosa. Adenike, this is not easy, and this is something which you have come to partner with Worthy, both Sky Girls and the Tears Foundation. One of the bits which we notice is we have a lot of underserved communities in Nigeria. Jemima mentioned about Lagos is one box, Abuja is one box, Port Harcourt, but you have 36 states and the FCT, and some people don't even have access to this. I saw, thank God for the TikTok generation, I saw a doctor who went to some hospital and was complaining that she doesn't understand how people go to that hospital and come out without more illnesses and diseases, that the state of it was so bad. And this was a doctor speaking about this. And so, Adenike, what are the gaps which you've noticed in carrying out advocacy around sexual and reproductive health rights?
Okay, just a quick interact. Sky Girls is a multimedia behavior change program designed by girls for girls, right, across sub-Saharan Africa. And then we launched in Nigeria in 2022. And our focus is on girls aged 13 to 19. And the reason is we just want to give them positive life choices, including access to sexual and reproductive health. And to date, we've reached over 847,000 girls just through on-the-ground activation, and then over 1.2 million girls via social media or online activations. And what we just do is we give them access to relatable and accurate information for them to be able to guide their choices, right? So we don't tell them what to do. We don't give them like a rule book or anything. The choices are still theirs to make. We just present the options in a manner that they are able to make, the right choices. And I think that background would help go into some of the challenges, that we may have, or some of the areas that we feel like there's a gap, right? So in the process of having to discuss or talk about sexual and reproductive health, right? We're dealing with young adults that are no longer children, right? And then they are also getting to the point where they are discovering themselves, discovering their identity and independence. And this period involves, puberty, they start romantic relationships, there's increased vulnerability. They're also what I would call impressionable. This is the period where it's their formative years. And while the schools and the parents offer like some kind of guidance, SRH still remains very sensitive. It's a sensitive topic, and there's kind of like limited access and relatable information, especially in the underserved communities. And so what we do is that, because we know that what we've identified really is the conversations are almost, in some cases, not had at all within the homes, within the communities, within the, I guess, even religious environments. It's just like a no-go area, right? And where the conversations are also had, there's a lot of misinformation. If a boy touches you, you will get pregnant. All of that, if you drink this and drink that, this will not happen or this will go away. And you'll be shocked at the number of the statistics in terms of people that are either like consuming harmful things or just even doing things, the wrong way. And so what we do is educate, right? And one of the ways that we do it, like I said, it's a multimedia platform. So what we do is we go and meet the girls where they are. They love to watch TV. They love people like Jemima. They love to watch drama. They're always on social media. And so what we do is that we curate and create content and seed our messaging in there, and then just like present it to them. If you go on YouTube, there's a drama series called Journey to Bloom. It's free, and it's also free to air. Every now and then we also repeat on terrestrial and satellite TV. If you go and watch Journey to Bloom, it literally just it was released last year. It's a series that is, and so we use storytelling, to share our SRH messaging, and it has garnered over 1 million views so far. We just launched something called a series, a TV, like a TV series, but it's on YouTube, called Glow and Grow. And our focus is just on period management, debunking puberty myths, empowering girls to understand their rights, especially around, consent, and healthy relationships. Healthy relationships, not just with the opposite sex, even with same sex. Just knowing that you really have the power to say stop. Your no is your no, and your yes is your yes. And also, we're also, launching a new project called A Letter to My 30-year-old self. It just focuses on the importance of family planning for teenage girls, and it encourages girls to also think about their future. That's why you're writing to your future self, understanding that some of the decisions that you make today would literally determine your future self will how life would be for your future self. And I guess for teenage girls, Letter to Your 30-year-old self is like, it looks like a long way, like a long road. So, and what we do is that we allow them to just like, make informed decisions around understanding family planning that can shape their life goals, so that um, um, they're able to really just like think through stuff before they decide. And it goes beyond even when it has to do with conversations around, the opposite sex, which is really when we have conversations, which is really what comes out tops with, with the girls.
Okay, thank you so much. And I like the fact that you spoke about the background of what you did. And one bit which is very common with all of your guests here today is your active involvement in media, because it's a major tool for us to have this conversation. A couple of years ago, we weren't able to talk about things like this, and it was all shrouded in a bit of, oh, is this a safe conversation? Is this the conversation people want to hear? But we will force people to have this conversation and hear this conversation. And so thank you so much, Adenike. Egosa, I know that TOS Foundation over the years has supported young and underprivileged children, especially in schools, in underserved communities, and the work which you do closely with Worthy. Do you want to tell us more about it and the gaps which you've seen in the system when it comes to sexual and reproductive health rights?
Yes, thank you very much. So firstly, at the foundation, we get to see these gaps more like firsthand in terms of seeing maybe seeing young girls whose bodies have not yet properly formed, getting married, and then this leads to like health complications. We see women who are dying maybe in the underserved communities because they don't have as little as 1,000 naira for antenatal care. And then we still have the miscommunication around um, family planning. And then people are resorting to, unsafe abortion, which increases the mortality rate. And one very interesting thing that I came across a study in last year, November, by Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, which showed an average of 610,000 people who actually seek unsafe abortion. And this is because there's still a stigma around this family planning in regards to the culture or religion. So these things are happening every day. Now with the foundation, TLS Foundation, we have an initiative called WAGE, which is Women and Girls Empowerment. And this is meant to break down these barriers by increasing maternal antenatal care. We're, we go into girl child education. We have reproductive health education and economic empowerment so that women and girls are able to take care of themselves. And then they have the power of choice in terms of decision making. So the gaps are wide, and what we're trying to do is have the conversation around power, choice, and opportunity. And we've proudly been able to take this across states, across schools, and marketplaces, even the IDP camps across Nigeria. We're seeing the change slowly but surely in their communication, their mindset, and their openness to opportunities. With girls being able to stay in school, we're able to limit the range of child marriages. And then in turn, they're able to get more understanding about their reproductive health. Sorry, about their reproductive health and make more informed decisions. So that is a bit of what we're doing. We still have a whole lot more to do, but as a base to keep this conversation alive.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Agus. And while we're wrapping this up, I like to end by asking my guests to have a wish list. I'll start with Jemima, but there's a question, and then you'll tell us your wish list. If you could ask government, the private sector, the entertainment industry for something to support the advocacy around sexual and reproductive health rights, what would it be? And so before I even speak to that, last week we had Miriam Booker, one of the champions as well, on the show, and I asked her about religion and how this affects sexual and reproductive health rights. I was so happy to hear her, I think, on the intro of Davido's album yesterday. And so our champions are constantly breaking boundaries and barriers and making us proud. But Jemima, as a young lady, this is something which we've heard about and we know about. It's hard for younger girls to talk about sexual and reproductive health issues. How can we create and hold space for young girls and even older women as well to be able to talk about this in spaces where they're not met with judgment and stigma, but they're given solutions which would help them to avoid illegal abortions and taking the wrong contraceptives and the likes, and just even being able to talk about abuse and the lack of autonomy to their bodies, especially around older people of the opposite sex?
The first thing will be, like you said, to make it normal. I want us to get to a point where conversations like this are normal. You're not weird for publicly speaking about your period. You're not weird about publicly speaking about contraceptives. You're not weird for saying these things where there's no shame ascribed to conversations like this. This is from experience. I posted a video that did more numbers than I expected it to, and it was just around my period symptoms and how they change in different phases of my life. The period symptoms I had in my first year of, menstruation are very different from what they were in like my mid-teens when I was in uni, or what they are now as a grown, woman, and how they keep changing, and how even as the owner of the body, sometimes it's okay if you don't understand it because a lot is going on. And I had some comments talking about how why are you talking about period in public on the internet? I had some women talk about how, oh, when their nieces or younger sisters have come to them, they've told them, you're not the first. Dismissive comment like that. And in the comment section, I was there correcting some of these people. If you went through it and it was difficult for you, why not allow yourself be a vessel of ease to someone else? This mentality of I suffered it, so you will suffer it too. You're not the first. It needs to die. We need to put an end to it. So we need to allow more conversations like this openly. Openly is the key word. We need to normalize these conversations. We should be able to talk about all these things the way we can talk about the common cold, or we can talk about malaria. And maybe when it becomes more common, when people are not more when they're more exposed to conversations like this, the resistance or the recoil that naturally comes at the moment will be, somewhat dissipated. And whether we choose to accept it or not, we are a very religious country. We probably have more churches than schools in Nigeria. Um, we're extremely religious, Christian wise, Islam, Islamic religion wise. And it's only right that in communicating things as important as good sexual health education and rights, we go through the people that the majority of the population generally listen to. And that would be our pastors, our preachers, our reverend sisters, reverend fathers, our imams, our fathers, the people who communicate everything else to the community. And I think a major reason why this is not being done yet, or at least not on a wider scale, is because there's still some level of shame attached to this conversation and is somewhat identified as immoral. I need these people as well as everyone else to understand that having these conversations is not immoral. If anything, it's the opposite. Knowledge is power, and knowing the results and consequences that align with certain actions is important. It will help curb some of the things that we're currently experiencing, because guess what, with or without having the conversations, people are doing things and people will continue to do things. So is it not better to properly educate them so they're making very, very decisive, choices based on educational and knowledgeable experiences? My Do I go into my wish list now, Andy?
Yes, please.
My wish list, first one would definitely be, oh, if this is for the government to implement, I would say number one key point would be sexual health education in every school at every level, because it changes. For example, I keep coming back to women because maternal health and women's health is my primary area of concentration. As a woman, you go through premenstrual when you're like a child under the age of, for some people, 10. Some people get their periods as early as 7, 8, as we've seen in recent times. You go into the menstruation era, and then the childbearing era for some who decide to have children. And guess what? That's not where it ends. There's still menopause and postmenopause. So at different stages in your life, you're dealing with different things happening to your body. So you can't say because you did sexual health education in primary school, there's no need for it in secondary school. That is not how it should work. I want for them to implement it at every educational level for boys and for girls. You go to school every day. So when something is taught in school, that kind of makes it normal for you because it's your daily, it's daily activity. The way you do assembly every morning, I want it to be done, even if it's on the assembly ground, for these children to hear these things. I also want for it to be, I don't know how possible that is, but for it to be made compulsory or made important for our religious houses to communicate with the members of the congregation in the churches and in the mosques. And I want as many policies are made. This is the third one on my wish list now. I'm Oliver Twist, so I have three things on my wish list. The third one will be, as much as you're creating these policies, because my first two is in line with them creating policies for these things to be done. The third one will be in following through and making sure that the policies are implemented. Like they have, created the policy around women's economic empowerment. Um, Shout out to the people who currently are championing implementing these policies. But I still feel like there's a lot that we can do at Worthy and other places as well in implementing it further until it gets to literally grassroots. I want it to be on the words, in the mouth and words of every household, that sexual health education and reproductive health rights are normal and are not immoral.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Jemima. Kelechi, there's this new, it's not a new trend, but if you go around Nigeria, there's something which you observe. You see a lot of hawkers selling drugs, medication, and the likes. And when we talk about sexual and reproductive health rights, erectile dysfunction is a conversation with men and which men should have. And so you see people buying some type of medication
Abo.
on the road, buying agbo, the ones in bottles, um, without the right regulations, and most of them can't even go into clinics and hospitals and have these conversations to find out what they really want. And so I would like you to speak to that in addition to giving us your wish list in closing.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I come to that, please, I just want to pick on what Jemima said. Um, I have a friend here in the UK, Anita Jones. She's on CBS, she's on Premier League, and she works with Thierry Henry, like she's top up there. And she has endometriosis. A lot of people don't know about endometriosis. A lot of women don't actually know about it. Half of the women in the UK don't know about it. And she was gaslit for 14 years in the hospital that no, go away, it's just pain, it's just this. Because the doctors don't know much about it or didn't know much at the time about it. And she was suffering from excruciating pain. And it's tied to the period pain that and changes that Jemima was talking about. and we need more education. I'm sure that there are a lot of people that will be going through it in Nigeria. They don't know what it is. Maybe it's past as period pain, but it's actually more serious than that. Before she was then diagnosed, now she's leading a campaign. I support her in whatever she does. So I just wanted to highlight that point as well. About men and buying abo, is a very harmful practice. It's unsafe. You don't know how it was produced. You don't know the content. You're just drinking, killing your liver, killing your kidney. I mean, people should be aware that dialysis is very, very expensive. It's not easy. So if you are having symptoms of erectile dysfunction and stuff like that, you should seek appropriate help in hospitals with doctors that know what they are doing. Buying this stuff on the roadside is not good at all. Tomorrow now, when you die, you now say it's your village people. It's not your village people. It's the thing that you were taking. So we should be careful with that. My wish list. It has to do with women economic empowerment policy as well. That's for the politicians and for the policymakers. I recently went to a conference and someone asked me, money and fame, which one is more important? I struggled to answer that question because for me, the person didn't understand. I know they wanted everybody to say money, but the fame gets into rooms to have conversations to push for some kind of policy moves and changes. Most times when I'm in Abuja, I'm always maybe in the National Assembly negotiating this on the side, doing this on the side. These are things that get into rooms. You understand? And when you speak like the way Jemima is speaking, people will listen, especially on stuff. And I said to them, technically fame is for the public service. The money is private. I'm not a selfish person, so probably I prefer fame. So making these policy changes for me will help. Changes about female genital mutilation that we know that still happens in communities. The government needs to tackle them. And again, just marginalized communities, averaging them up. We'll get a long way now. I mean, in my wish list as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelechi. Let's hear from Egosa. What's on your wish list? The public sector, donors, and government.
Yes. So in respect to the government, what I would want is for them to create and implement these policies to protect these girls and women. We have so much gap in terms of the laws that are guiding women and protecting them in this topic of SRHR. So we have a lot of work to do there. We need these people to create these policies and enforce them. In terms of donors, we're welcoming people to partner with us in terms of getting these awareness to the grassroots level. We have a lot of work that we can do in terms of providing women and girls with, maternal care when needed. For the community, we should be open to, learning more about these rights. We should be open to, changing what the norms or what the knowledge about SRHR are to these girls. They need to learn, they need to know and understand their reproductive rights so that they make better decisions. And in everyday Nigerians, support, share, listen to talks like this. There are things that could open up a new segment of understanding for them. So let's keep the conversation alive.
Thank
Thank you.
you. And Adenike, what's on your wish list to the private sector, public, and donors and the communities?
Thank you. I think everyone has done justice to it. And I guess for me, I'll just speak from Sky Girl's point of view, right? We are focused on teenage girls. And I think it's essentially, just like building a generation of young women who are confident, informed, and equipped to make positive life choices, right? And by addressing sexual and reproductive health early, we're setting the foundation for, better maternal health outcomes, delayed pregnancies, and empowered decision making in their adulthood. And this, of course, it does have it kind of brings economic and social stability when you have these conversations, with the girls from that age 13 to 19. And of course, even with the communities as well, we want to see how at this level the ripple effects are also well established, right? When girls have accurate sexual and reproductive health information, they stay in school longer, right? There's delayed childbirth, and they contribute more, meaningfully to their families to the communities as well. And this does not only just improve their own like personal, trajectories in life, but also just supports, long-term, like I said, social, cultural, economic stability. And so I think Jemima kind of touched on it, where um, and I know I've talked about government, whatnot, but it really is everybody's problem. But I feel like it can be enforced, right? When it's something that is kind of made a thing for schools to take on and take seriously. Just like she said, she mentioned religious houses, because those are the places where, people take literally everything that they hear to heart. And so those are also outlets that we can also touch. And just like you do your vaccines for polio and whatnot, we can do door to door, even from a community point of view. So as you're educating in the schools, you're also educating in the communities, because the impact is, immeasurable if we can get it right. You have more people focused on the right things. You have more girls, especially, and even by extension, even the boys. I know I keep talking about girls because, again, for me, it's Sky Girls, but there's also the impact on the boys as well. Because if somebody is not pregnant for you, you are not distracted and having to listen to your mom, scold you for you getting everything wrong because you got a girl pregnant. You can focus on other things that are, that are important. So for me, yeah, it's just to buttress on what everybody else has said.
Thank you, Adenike. To our viewers at home, you can follow up on Sky Girls Nigeria and watch some of their campaigns and advocacy programs on YouTube and other platforms. For TOS Foundation, check the TOS Foundation website. And to members of the public, you don't always have to be able to actively work in this space, because time is an asset, but you can support financially or even with your time in any way with what they're doing as Sky Girls and TOS Foundation. For Jemima, keep doing what you do, but also support their individual efforts. Lagos Love Stories on Netflix. Go watch it and support Jemima. It was brilliant and funny. Kelechi has said, Arsenal women are playing today. The same way we watched the men, the same way we made the noise, we need to support, because that's when they get the more numbers, they get more marketing, they get more budget, which now indirectly and directly leads to women economic empowerment. Because for us to be able to get some of these things done, we need to also have the finances to support. And I just want to say that if you paid close attention, all of the conversation here was solution oriented, and no one here was dwelling on the fact that we need money, funding is a problem. And to see that mind shift and mindset is absolutely impressive and encouraging. So ladies and Dr. Kelechi, thank you so much. Always a pleasure talking to you guys. I think we'll speak in another couple of months. I'm watching you, I'm following up with what you're doing, and you have my full support, and it's always a pleasure. Do have a blessed weekend, and happy Easter to the four of you.
Thank you. Happy
Thank
Easter too.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. That's the
Thank
mark we can
you.
take on the political segment. I should be on standby with entertainment news, and after that we have entrepreneurship spotlight, social media trend, and our political interlude.